Good afternoon. My name is Juergen Steinmetz, joining you as almost every day now from Honolulu, Hawaii for livestream.travel and eTurboNews. With me, as always, is Dr. Peter Tarlow, joining us from hopefully sunny College Station in Texas. In Hawaii, since we always start with the weather, and this is important, it's fairly nice and sunny here today. A few clouds I see when I look outside, but a lot of people are sailing and cruises, dinner cruises resumed, I guess, in Waikiki. Maybe they don't serve dinner like they used to serve. I understand it's in plastic cover bag, but people are having fun. Tourism, I would say, is booming in Hawaii. We haven't seen these numbers for the last year. So how's everything in College Station today?
Well, it was a little less sunny here in College Station. It was just in the 70-degree range, but cloudy. It rained last night and it's supposed to rain again possibly tomorrow. But then we're expecting a really nice weekend. As you know, on Saturday is Passover weekend, and so that'll make it really kind of special. That'll be a nice warm, hopefully nice warm time. And of course, this is spring break, and that's been a really interesting period. Here in College Station, they cut spring break to only one day because of COVID. But of course, in Miami, many colleges did have spring break, and many of those people caused a lot of problems in Miami. One, of course, having that many kids on the street has got to be a super spreader problem for COVID. And then, of course, many of them did not behave very well. And so there's been issues of rapes or assaults or all sorts of things. The mayor of Miami finally had to put a curfew at 8 o'clock in the evening. So it is spring break. Spring is starting, but unfortunately, I think a lot of people have felt very cooped up, and they're letting all their emotions out in a kind of antisocial behavior. And so that's going to be a real problem, because when they come home, they may be coming home sick again and restarting the COVID virus. So hopefully that won't happen, but it very well could be.
Yeah, and I think people need to be aware of it. This is not over.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I know all of us want to travel, we want to party, we want to meet people. It takes a little bit more time.
Yeah,
And
it is.
before we
And we are seeing some bright spots. I think I mentioned to you that Israel declared the pandemic over, but they're not letting foreigners in. In other words, they're afraid that people will import the disease into the country. So if you are living in Israel, you're okay. And the pandemic is now declared done. I think 70% of the population has been vaccinated. On the other hand, the other side of that is tourism is still very low because they're afraid to have people come in. A good thing in Texas is that on Monday, the governor announced, this coming Monday, that any Texan over the age of 16 is now able to get the COVID vaccine. So it will be done on a statewide basis, no longer by priority. And we have enough people vaccinated here that they're able to now make it available at all the pharmacies around this, or many of the pharmacies around the state, and other vaccine centers. And hopefully by the end of this month, we will have a good, maybe 70% of our population here also vaccinated. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think we're doing pretty good in the United States compared to many other countries in the world.
Yes.
So we're very fortunate, because if you look
And we're allowed to travel here. I was reading on the BBC that it was a £5,000, I think I have that right, fine for any British person who wants to go abroad this summer. And if that's true, and I'm not 100% sure that I have the right numbers or that it's 100% correct what I'm saying, but I believe that to be the situation, that's really going to be a real problem for people in Britain. They're dreaming of vacations that they can't take. I think you mentioned to me in Germany, you have an issue where people can't go even 20 miles from their home.
Well, it's not the miles, but people are advised to stay at home over the Easter holiday. And you look, the bureaucracy comes in. There should be an immediate regulation, but it's not. Right now, everything is still quite open, but it starts in a week. And we don't have a week with this virus. I think governments sometimes have a hard time catching up. And when they catch up, by then things are already worse. So it's this program, this whole virus situation is handled so differently in so many different parts of the world. It really
Yes.
needed a global approach. What hasn't happened to
No.
most of the
The World Health Organization did not do a good job on this at all. Um, and they could have developed a set of protocols for the entire world that every nation would follow, and that never happened.
But of
So
course, the World Health Organization doesn't have the power.
no, but they could have had the ethical power
National
to do it.
interest involved.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, it is what it is, and I think we need to stay put. I'm not too thrilled to hear what's going on in Florida and South Beach. It's a wonderful place to travel and to party if you're young in normal times, but not right now.
Yeah.
And if you
Well, of
see,
course, it is happening, and that's a problem. So, you are seeing problems both in the United States and in parts of the world. I think if you told me that if Germans go to Mallorca, will they create some sort of another problem there as far as COVID? Of course, we have the terrible problems along the border, and tomorrow the government's going to be addressing the total collapse on the U.S.-Mexican border, and Mexico had condemned much of what's going on in the world today. And I understand that, and the cartels are booming. So that's a real problem because people want to go to Mexico are now afraid because northern Mexico is basically become a no man's land due to the cartels and the rush to the US border. So that's really destroyed all the tourism in places like Matamoros along the area, or Monterrey, the third largest city in Mexico. It's having some real issues. On the other hand, there are lots of wonderful countries. So one of the countries I was looking at the map that I think has so much to offer is Indonesia. And I know you've spent time there. And when tourism does open up again, that might be a great place for people to visit.
well, Indonesia has always been a great place to visit. You have a lot of diversity. You have the mix of culture, beaches. I mean, it's and country with how many 10,000s of islands? I don't know.
And
But
so they all have a coastline.
and they are, it's not so it's enough coastline. But you have, of course, you have the Java culture. You have Kalimantan, and then of course there's Bali. What's completely
Yes.
different. The Indonesia is the largest Muslim country in the world, with the
Right.
largest Muslim population. But Bali isn't Muslim. Actually, they don't even, most of the time it appears they don't like the Muslims. And it's
Yeah.
Hindu. So it's a completely different
Yeah.
culture. Bali
It
always,
isn't there a part, another part of Indonesia, which is a very Christian part of Indonesia.
Christians are everywhere. There is Molucca Islands, for example. You find many Christians, and you find usually Christians live in harmony with the Muslims. There are tensions sometimes, but tensions are not really usual. I think it's a fairly peaceful country for the most part, and of course it's a locked country right now because of
Yes.
COVID. And Indonesia tourism industry is an important industry. It's not the only industry. I mean, Indonesia has larger industries than tourism, but it's a very important industry, and specifically on the island of Bali, or on many of the islands, tourism is almost an essential industry.
Sure.
So hopefully,
Yeah, and I think it would be a really, once tourism opens up again, I think it'd be a really, excuse me, let me shut this off here. Stop. Um, eh, I apologize for that. Hopefully you can knock it out. Once tourism opens up again, I think this is going to be a really fascinating place to go. Excuse me.
it's like my computer; it rings everywhere. You know,
Oh, I hate it. Yes.
TV goes, I have the Google app. I don't know what they call it. Hey Google, and I don't want to say this because it might start in the background.
Yeah, no, don't do. You cut that out. But
I get my phone turned off all night usually.
yes,
In some, I don't want to say what system because I don't want people to try it. But there's one of the phone systems you cannot really cut off. So in the
yes,
middle of the night at 3 in the morning, if someone calls me on that particular system, it goes everywhere. I mean, it's all over the
And of
place.
course, one of the problems is that there is uh, there's so many time zones, and in the world of tourism, somebody is up at every time of the hour. So no matter what time you go, it's always there.
Yeah,
But I
you can
think
know
that
the song. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
yeah, that's right. Yes. So people always say to me, I say, well, they say it's time to have a drink. And I go, but it's in the middle of the afternoon. They go, yes, but someplace in the world it's 10 o'clock at night. So I go, okay. um, I think that, one of the fascinating things about tourism is that we're able to see different parts of the world and explore different cultures and different ideas. And so one of the things I think is nice is when we talk about some of the different countries, what are a few of the really interesting things to visit? If you were going to go to Indonesia for a week, not you necessarily, Juergen Steinmetz, but a person, would you just go to Jakarta? Would you go to some of the islands, or how would you how might somebody spend a week in Indonesia?
Well, it depends what you do. I think most people really identify Indonesia tourism with the island of Bali. It's called the island of the god.
Yes,
It is a holiday every single day. Similar, I guess, to the Jewish culture, the Hindu culture has a holiday every single day. So when you're
they
in
have more
Bali,
holidays than we have.
yes, you can actually go to any village. You find a village. There's a calendar where there's a holiday. So Bali is a special place. You have the beaches, you have the nightlife, but you definitely also have the cultural experience. And you have beautiful hotels from 5-star to very popular are private villas you can rent. And not only do you rent the villa, you can rent the staff with it. So you don't you they
Wow.
cook for you, they clean for you. It's like a full service hotel, but it's your private villa. So Bali is very good. But besides Bali, of course, there are other places you should visit. In Java, you have a lot of cultural sites you could explore. Jakarta is a big city. It's a huge city. It's not really, I think, that much a place most tourists would go to unless you have business dealings in
Yeah,
Jakarta.
it's a
But I
business
always
city.
because it's a modern city and I live in a place on an island. I have beaches around me all the time. So if I would go to Indonesia, I probably may not want to go to the beach someplace. So
Yes.
maybe Bali, I go to Ubud, what is inland, where you have beautiful scenery in the on the mountains and Jakarta I always enjoyed because there's so much going on at all times, shopping and
Yeah.
nice hotels and nice restaurants and so forth.
One of the interesting things while we finish up talking about Indonesia is that Indonesia really became the mother, quote unquote, of the food in Holland. And when you're in the Netherlands, people love Indonesian food. I think Holland occupied Indonesia for quite a while.
It was a
And
colony, you know, and
the
and
Dutch left, but they brought the food with them. And so there are restaurants all over Amsterdam and all over Holland and all over the Netherlands that serve Rijkstafel, which is a traditional Indonesian kind of smorgasbord that's now become a Dutch national food. So it's kind of unique the way the world of tourism has changed things. And when you're in the Netherlands, if you're not slithering herring down your throat, you have stuff made with peanut butter.
yeah, and look, I mean, my father went to school in Holland. That's the only education he had. He even though he was German, but he grew up in Holland and he knew everything about Indonesia. He's never
Yeah,
been there, but in Dutch schools, you learned about Indonesia because it
yeah.
was uh, in the old days a
Occupied.
colony. It was not
Yeah.
really occupied, it was a colony. And so even many names, if you speak Dutch, you see apotheek, for example, pharmacy, it's the Dutch name. And there are many examples like this in the Indonesian language that relate back to Holland.
Loan
Now,
words from Holland.
yeah, there is a love-hate relationship in a way, I think. And this has changed, but I know when I was very active working with Indonesia about 20 years ago, Dutch people coming to Indonesia needed a visa. The only Europeans needing visas were Holland, people from Holland. That now has changed, but they always had flights and connections
Yeah.
between Holland and Indonesia. And yes, in Holland, there are many, you find a large a percentage of the Dutch people in the major cities are actually of Indonesian heritage. So that's
Yeah.
why you find a lot of the restaurants and the cultural life, Moluccas, for example, in Holland. They're Dutch people. They have a Dutch passport, but they're original and they're.
Yeah. So I think that's a real interesting concept. I think we should try to talk about different countries around the world. I think that's sort of an important thing as COVID begins to, God willing, wane, and people are able. I think we're all anxious to get back to travel. I think people cannot wait for these borders to end and be able to see the world again and to reconnect. And God willing, in 2021 or beginning of 2022, we'll be able to do that. And that's really be a great thing. So maybe that's a nice positive way for us to end for the evening. And I don't know how you say aloha in Indonesian, but do you know the word for goodbye in Indonesian?
I only know thank you, I remember.
All right.
I don't know.
All right. So
But
we'll just say
it in Dutch. It's tot ziens.
all right. So we'll just if you don't know what to say, you can always say shalom. So I'll speak to you tomorrow, and have a good evening. And hopefully it'll be a pleasant day in Hawaii tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Peter, and everyone. Thank you for watching us today. And stay tuned for some additional messages. And also, if you need to see a repeat of any of our talk sessions, just go to livestream.travel. I'm sorry, livestream.travel, and you find all our events, both in podcast format and in video format. And so you can go back and listen in if you're bored. And other than that, I wish you good night, good morning, good day,
Aloha.
and aloha. Aloha, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.